So before we get started, I wanted to just kind of give you a little bit of a aerial view of what we're looking at today as far as the youth piece in agricultural systems and building food resilient systems. And I wanted to start us off with this very typical Hunger Project photo of, there we go. Very typical Hunger Project photo of a youth, young girl, maybe 15, 16 years old, with a tool that I would love to see placed in a museum and never used again on the field. Bare feet, likely not farming any land that's hers. But essentially, these are for whom the SDGs are meant to be functioning, and she's also the one that's to be taking over the agency for her own development. And the way that this is happening in this photo is not a resilient food system, nor does she, by what we can tell, have any leadership in this photo either. So when we think about our sustainable development goals, I was going through them and thinking, okay, well, which ones are most relevant to today? And of course, I could probably have made an argument for all of them, but I just went through for the minimum that I could. No poverty, zero hunger, good education, gender equality, decent work and economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life on land, and of course partnerships. These to me seem to be the ones that all are a part of building resilient food systems. And with the largest youth population we've ever had in the history of the world, in relation to the larger population, we need the youth to be taking leadership on this. So we think about the whole system. It's not just going from farm to table. We have many components youth can be involved in. There's waste recovery, there's production, processing, distribution, marketing, purchasing, preparation. So when you think of agriculture or agriculturally relevant jobs, they often think of the laborious, back-breaking work on the field, and they're really not thinking about the other opportunities that still bring the food to the table or reduce waste and improve communities. So I'm thinking about the barriers. We have gaps between the training skills and what employer requirements are, time poverty in getting involved in decent vocational training. They lack credit, market, and land access, insufficient access to policy dialogue, and then there are especially limitations to young women's economic empowerment. So youth writ large are a problem, but the young women taking leadership is an even larger issue. And Jim Young Kim has spoken about this a lot recently. He's been talking a lot about how we have this unique world now where we have at our fingertips 24/7 our telephones, and the use of smartphones in even the most inaccessible and rural places is very common. And this means that we have a lot of young people looking at phones and things on the internet that are actually raising their aspirations. They're comparing where they're living and thinking about different living standards and different opportunities. They don't just have this 6 to 10 kilometer reality anymore, though that's where they exist. So the thing is that they're not even just looking for what other people are having anymore. They're now starving for the opportunities that are different that they're exposed to on their telephones. In Africa, as an example, they'll have about 3/4 of a billion people there will be using smartphones by the year 2020. So you can imagine what that will mean if the majority of those users are youth and if they'll still have access to at least a friend that has one as well. And this is just a quick snapshot of what we're seeing in Africa. So 53% of the users there being youth. So the Aspiration and Ag opportunity is unique because when we're thinking about the system as a whole, you are able to unleash creativity with the youth. There's more inclusivity and opportunity for sustainable economic growth, more green jobs, which is a big part for our climate action and our responsible consumption, and expanded and sustainable food systems. Here are happy people on their telephones. But the other thing too is what we don't want to lose is the intergenerational component. We still need very much for the youth to not work exclusively amongst themselves, but to be working intergenerationally with the elders, with their policymakers, with older people that may currently be farmers or have jobs that could break into the agricultural sector with them. And they need to be linking these around knowledge sharing, the shared responsibilities in their communities, especially sharing decision making, and then maintaining relevance that they can keep advancing. So as those youth grow into their adult years, to then continue working with the other youths, that you have this very smooth transition of relevance between the generations, that youth are always taking the leadership, but in partnership with their adult counterparts. So in closing, our resilience building, we must be thinking about this at the local level, with youth, by youth, for everyone, because it always seems impossible until it's done. So with that, I guess we'll start our panel. So thank you all for being here this morning. We have a wonderful panel that has agreed to let me prod and poke at them as a youth today at IFPRI. And though I do work for the Hunger Project, I have my youth hat on today for the UN's major group for children and youth, and I guess the youth population writ large. But Claudia also sits in the youth bracket with me. I felt it important to at least have another youth on the panel so that we can reflect this intergenerational component I just so heavily stressed. No. Vintage. You're vintage. So from my far right, we have James Thurlow, who's a research fellow here at IFPRI. And we're especially blessed to have him here today because he's going to share with us some intel from a recent manuscript on youth and agriculture that has not even been published yet. It's still under review. So we're very uniquely being allowed to have some of the inside information that's going to be coming out soon. So thanks for agreeing to that. Claudia is Knowledge at IFC, and she is the host of the Global Storytellers for Global Development, which has brought her to the IFC largely to do a lot of the storytelling that they'll be doing within IFC and their field work and their successes and challenges. But the unique part of global storytelling is she's been able to, in only about a year, link about 5,000 youth across the world to share their respective successes and challenges and grievances and try to build up their different leadership roles in making this world a sustainable one. And then Vimlendra Shaharan is the director for the Hunger Project's, basically the Hunger, no, I'm just kidding, FAO's office in DC, their liaison office. But we do partner with you on the field, so I guess that's not so off. So James, I'd like to start with you since I think you can give us the best writ large, more macro view of what we're thinking about with youth. And if you can tell us a little bit from your research on this, where youth are fitting and could fit in the youth in the food systems writ large, but then also when we're thinking about national level changes, how there can be an ability to garner greater youth interest in employment in the ag sector. So we need to know how they can fit and then how we can get them into those spaces.